In a world where the number of genders seems to be multiplying faster than rabbits, Timmy found himself stuck in a protest. Imagine, if you will, our protagonist Timmy, just an average teenager, trying to navigate his way to the local skate park. Suddenly, he's waylaid by a horde of protesters, all chanting about the existence of more than two genders. Now Timmy, he's a simple guy. He likes his weed, his skateboard, and the comfort of his mom's basement. He's not one for debates, especially ones that seem to be inventing new ways to complicate life. So he does what any reasonable teenager would do. He laughs. He laughs so hard he nearly falls off his skateboard. And then, with a grin that would put the Cheshire Cat to shame, he decides to engage. More than two genders? He chuckles. Next thing you're gonna tell me is that my skateboard identifies as a unicycle. His comments, dripping with sarcasm and dark humor, cut through the protest like a hot knife through butter. The protesters, taken aback, start to sputter, their chants faltering. Timmy continues, "You know what's ridiculous? It's not the idea of more than two genders. It's the fact that you're out here, blocking traffic, screaming about it, when there are actual problems in the world, like global warming or the fact that pineapple on pizza is still a thing." His words, though offensive to some, highlight the ridiculousness of the situation. In a world filled with real issues, people are making mountains out of molehills, creating unnecessary complexities and divisions. The protesters, now silent, stare at Timmy. Some are angry, others confused, but most look like they've just been slapped with a wet fish. Timmy, having said his piece, hops back on his skateboard. He looks at the crowd one last time, the grin back on his face. "Keep fighting the good fight," he says, the sarcasm dripping from each word. So Timmy skated away, leaving the protesters in a cloud of confusion and triggered emotions. Timmy then skated into the perfect storm of societal beauty standards. A blonde bombshell with more plastic in her than a recycling plant. A living, breathing Barbie doll, if you will. Her skin so artificially smooth, it could probably generate its own Wi-Fi signal. And her lips so puffed up they could double as flotation devices in a pinch. Timmy, like a moth to a flame, was drawn towards her. He was about to dive headfirst into the treacherous pool of simping, where men willingly drown their self-esteem for a drop of female validation. For Timmy, it was like a bizarre auction, except he was bidding with his dignity instead of money. The blonde glanced at him, her eyes scanning him top to bottom. His lack of a six-pack, his average height, his wallet that wasn't overflowing with cash. She dismissed him faster than a pop-up ad on a sketchy website. He was just another hopeful suitor who didn't meet her Mount Everest-like standards. You see, in this twisted game of love, men are expected to be as perfect as Greek gods. They must be tall like a redwood tree, rich like a tech tycoon, and have a body chiseled by Michelangelo himself. And for what? To win over a woman whose idea of love is a man's credit card limit. The irony here is as rich as a triple chocolate cake. Men chasing after women, trying to impress them with all they've got. And women setting their standards so high they might as well be looking for unicorns. It's a mad, mad world where people are valued for their exterior rather than their character. With a bruised ego and a lighter wallet, Timmy skated away, a victim of the dating economy. But don't feel too bad for him. After all, he's just another player in this bizarre game of love, where the pursuit of perfection is often the road to disappointment. Next, on Timmy's skating tour of societal insanity, he rolled into a debate between a vegan and a body positivity advocate. As Timmy glided past the kaleidoscope of humanity, he stumbled upon a heated argument that was as spicy as a vegan chili. On one side, a woman who believed that eating anything with a face was a crime against nature. She stood tall, her body as lean as the celery sticks she nibbled on. Her sanctimonious demeanor matched perfectly with her meat is murder shirt, and her eyes, oh those eyes, burned with the fiery passion of 1,000 tofu stir-fries. On the other side of the argument, a woman who believed that every roll of fat on her body was a badge of honor. She was as round as the donuts she devoured with a defiant gusto. Her shirt, stretched to its limits, read, "My body, my rules." She wielded her body positivity like a weapon, ready to strike down anyone who dared to question her lifestyle choices. Caught in the crossfire of this culinary clash, Timmy couldn't help but notice the extremes in society's views about body image and health. Here were two women, so intent on defending their lifestyle choices that they had lost sight of the importance of balance. The vegan, with her self-righteous attitude, seemed to forget that not everyone had the privilege or the desire to follow her plant-based path. Meanwhile, the body positivity advocate, with her defiant stance, seemed to ignore the potential health risks associated with obesity. As he observed this spectacle, he realized how society has become a battlefield. A battlefield where people are more interested in defending their own beliefs than in understanding and respecting the choices of others. Where the concept of body positivity is often misinterpreted as an excuse for unhealthy habits, and where a conscious lifestyle choice like veganism is often ridiculed as an extremist view. Timmy skated away, leaving behind the sounds of heated debate and the smell of tofu. He couldn't help but wonder, amidst all this insanity, where is the middle ground? Where is the respect for personal choices? With these thoughts in his mind, he continued his journey through the labyrinth of societal absurdity. Skating further into the belly of societal madness, Timmy encountered the ugly face of racism. As he glided down the cracked concrete, his path was blocked by two men. Their faces were hardened by life's bitter experiences, their words as sharp as knives, cutting through the air with racial slurs. "Hey, snowflake!" they jeered, their laughter echoing off the graffitied walls, as if the color of his skin was an open invitation to their uninvited hostility. Timmy stood there, caught in the crossfire of their discriminatory banter, a bystander in his own life story. Here was the bitter taste of prejudice, served cold on a platter of ignorance. The irony was not lost on Timmy. Society, in all its glorious double standards, had made it acceptable for every race to throw slurs at him. A white boy, but God forbid he retaliates. He would be labeled a racist, a white supremacist. It was a twisted game of who can offend whom more. A game where the rules were as skewed as the players. It was okay for every race to be racist towards white people, but the moment the tables were turned, all hell would break loose. And let's not forget the gender double standards. Women could belittle, mistreat, and emotionally abuse men, but the moment a man dared to defend himself, he was in the wrong. He was the villain. The absurdity of it all was as comical as it was tragic. Timmy could have retaliated, could have thrown back a few slurs of his own, but he chose not to. He chose to rise above their petty prejudice. He chose to be better because he knew that the only thing worse than being a victim of racism was becoming a racist himself. So he shrugged, rolled his eyes, and skated away, leaving the echoes of prejudice behind. He left them standing there, their words hanging in the air like stale smoke. He left them with their ignorance and their hate, for those were burdens he refused to carry. With a shrug and a roll of his eyes, Timmy skated away, leaving the echoes of prejudice behind. Finally, Timmy skated into a scene straight out of a bad rap video. His friend, a walking cliché of today's rap scene, was there, complete with the gold chains, flashy cars, and a catchy yet meaningless song playing in the background. An embodiment of the fall from authenticity, Timmy's friend had traded his real talent for the lure of fame and fortune. In this topsy-turvy world, where talent was secondary to shallow showmanship, Timmy's friend was no outlier. He was a star, a success by society's skewed standards. He'd sold his soul not to the devil, but to an industry that thrived on mediocrity and rewarded repetition. His lyrics, once filled with raw emotion and thought-provoking themes, were now a jumble of boastful claims and endless refrains about money, power, and women. The music industry, it seemed, had become a factory, churning out assembly line entertainers who were more focused on their image than their art. The masses too were complicit, consuming this fast food music with a voracious appetite, oblivious to the richness of authentic talent being left to starve in the shadows. And then there was the obsession with materialism. The shiny cars, the blinding bling, the designer clothes, they were all part of the facade, the carefully constructed illusion of success. It was as if the value of an artist was measured not by their talent, but by their bank balance and their ability to flaunt it. Timmy watched his friend caught in this web of superficiality, and he couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. This was not the friend he'd grown up with, not the passionate artist who'd once dreamed of changing the world with his music. This was a puppet dancing to the tune of societal expectations, losing himself in the process. As the beats faded and the bling lost its shine, Timmy skated away, leaving behind a friend lost in the noise of societal expectations. In the twilight of his journey, Timmy encountered the last bastion of sanity. An old man, weathered by time and wisdom, halted the boys with a simple, "Hold on there." This wasn't a grumpy old curmudgeon, but a sage, seasoned by the absurdity of life. With a chuckle he began, "You see, this world, it's a circus, a comedy show of the highest order. Genders multiplying like rabbits, men chasing impossible ideals of beauty, women setting the bar sky high, people priding themselves on their diet while ballooning in size, racial slurs flying around like confetti. And don't get me started on the music scene." His laughter echoed, a hilarious testament to the world's madness. "Remember, boys," he continued, "the world may be a stage, but you choose your role. Don't get swept up in the show." With a tip of his hat and a twinkle in his eye, the old man walked away, leaving Timmy and his friend in a state of contemplative silence.